Hello everyone. I'm just going to show you a swipe pour. I have my tools here and I've mixed up my pouring media, which follows to some extent the Anne-Marie Mriddenhoff's pouring media suggestions, and it has 1 part Liquitex pouring media and 1 part gloss pouring media from Liquitex and 1 part Bookbinder's PVA glue, and that was actually a half a part of the gloss media, and it has 1 part of Floetrol, and I've put in a half a part of the Tri-Art glass resin. Now this pouring media I'm going to use on my top coat. I'll just put that here. I'm going to use it on my top coat, which is a very dark, very dark, and you can see how it flows, and it makes a little mound on the top when it drops in, but then it evens out. So that's the consistency of my top coat, and my top coat is made with my pouring media. All the other coats have similar consistency, but they are the base coats and they are made with Floetrol. 2 of the colors, the yellow and the orange, have a drop of silicone. So what I'm going to do here, and I use these little plastic stirrers because I can just stick them in a bucket of water and wash them when I'm done and reuse them. These are plastic knives that I've had left over from an event, and I always seem to have more plastic knives after an event. This was a gallery opening than I need, and I don't use them in my day-to-day life, so now I'm making use of them for this. So I'm going to put all these plastic knives in that cup of water, wash them later, and I'm going to put on some plastic gloves. I'm using the medium duty plastic gloves because you can see by the paint on them, I reuse them and they don't tear, and that way I don't have to throw away plastic gloves. It's important to wear plastic because quite a few of the paints have heavy metals in them, and heavy metals can cause cancer, and they also can cause neurological diseases. And if you have children, it's very important that they be protected, especially the paints that are named for heavy metals like cobalt blue and cobalt turquoise and cadmium red, cadmium yellow, cadmium orange. Many of the colors have hazardous chemicals. Now I have painted the canvas with some leftover paint from my last pour, just because I do have a little bit of stain gel in 1 or 2 of these paints, and it was advised that if you're using the stain gels that you might want to paint the canvas in advance so that it doesn't absorb even though it's gessoed already. So what I'm going to do is make some areas of paint and get my canvas covered with what I call the base coats. And as I mentioned before, the base coat has Floetrol in it. And I'm going to make different areas. I don't really want them to blend very much, because this is going to be what's called a swipe pour, where I want large areas of paint in different colors with a little bit of mixing, but not too much. One of my favorites is this this nice teal or turquoise color. And so I'm just going to put enough of this on so that all of the canvas below is covered. I like these paper cups because you can get a fine line if you want by just squeezing them. So put a little more blue in some areas. Pouring is messy, but it's fun. It kind of makes you feel like a child again, playing with your finger paints that we used to have when I was a kid, a zillion years ago. Most of the time I'm a watercolor artist, so we don't quite have the luxury of this kind of messy activity. Watercolor tends to be fairly neat. So I'm just going to make a few little, make sure all the little spots, there are no empty spots, and I'll do a few more crisscrossing. Okay, so the way this works is I use these various tools. These are spatulas used in oil and acrylic painting. And I will go to an area with my top coat. As I noted before, my top coat is made with this list of medias. 1 part Liquitex pouring media, 1/2 part gloss media, 1 part bookbinder's glue, 1 part Floetrol, and 1/2 part of Tri-Art resin. I've mixed the resin in because I like the final finish that it gives to the painting. So at this point, I'm not going to mix my colors by picking this up and turning it and mixing it. I'm just going to take some color and put it in an area, some dark top coat color, and begin my swipe. I think you can see that with the camera. Begin my swipe with a spatula. And since my pouring media in the top coat is much different than my pouring media below, I am getting some cell development. You can see already, we call that cell development when we see the colors coming through from below, and they form different colors of circular cells. So I'm using my spatula, and I'm deciding where I want to create these patterns. I like to leave a little bit of the bottom color between the markings that I'm making with the top coat. We're getting some very nice cell development in there. You can see all the cell development coming up, so that's working out pretty well. I have the silicone, as I mentioned before, only in the orange and yellow. In the other color, the two blues, the turquoise and the lighter blue, I don't have any silicone. But you're seeing some cells develop in them anyway. I have tried to make the bottom coats fairly consistent in their thickness, which was a little bit difficult because I used several different kinds of paints in there. I want that corner there. I'm going to make a nice little mark like that, and take a mark and make it. This is so much fun. I can't begin to tell you how much fun it is. Really, it's really playing. I call it my alchemy series because yes, it's art, but so much of it depends on how well you make your medias that you're using and how those medias eventually give you some of those cells. And I don't want to overdo it. I don't want a painting that is all cells. So let's see if I can get some colors here where there aren't any cells. I'll just try to put my darks in a few places and minimize the cells. And one of the ways I can minimize the cells is spread it out very lightly so that it's not a thin coat over the coats below. The thinner the coat the thinner I stretch it, like here. I haven't stretched it very thin there, so I'm just going to leave that there, and I actually am going to put in a little more dark because I like the idea, and put a little more dark in here. I like the idea that that's thick enough that the cells are not going to come through in those areas. And I'm not keen on having cells develop on my corners. I like the idea of the dark framing, the dark corners framing the painting and keeping the eye of the viewer into the painting. So let's see, I might just do a little more dark here in the center so that it's not all cells in the center, and I'm going to take my point of my and just not have a blob there, but just stretch it out a little bit. You see how I just take the point and stretch it out. I'd like to stretch it out a little bit here into that big area of yellow. So I think that's looking pretty good. Let's see how it works when we don't really need to torch this because we've got very good cells, but I'll just do a tiny little bit. I don't want to do too much because I don't want more cells developing than I already have. This is already quite a lot. I think I'm going to put a little more dark over here so that that begins to frame things there. I'm going to cover up some of this turquoise here with some more dark. I don't think there. Put a little bit of that. I think I'm going to take away that little yellow orange line there. And I think maybe a tad here. Yeah, that gives me a little more what we call in watercolor value contrast, because you don't want it all kind of the same value, the same tone. So you want to have this balance of very dark. I need a little more dark over here. Okay, I think that's pretty close to being finished. And then we just go around and pick up some of the drippings and make sure that the sides are, pick up some of the drippings. Make sure that the canvas is all covered. And I should, yep. I'll go around because otherwise I might get it all over my outfit if I bend over. I'm going to move it forward a little bit because I think it's not quite 100% level. Sometimes when I'm not completely happy with how level it is, I take a piece of cardboard and slip it under there. I live in a 300-year-old house, so there's not a single level floor anywhere in the house. There, get that. Some people have made some nice containers out of big basins and they have them level all the time. I don't seem to be very level. But I think that's starting to look pretty level right there. Yeah. I've got most of my sides looking pretty good. You want the sides to look nice when it dries and it hangs so beautifully. There we are. I hope you enjoyed it. When it's completely dry, I will use the Kamar spray varnish and give it 3 coats of varnish, but it'll have to wait a number of days to be totally dry. And then it'll be varnished and ready to hang. Thanks for visiting.